Hello everyone. Today I decided to tackle that task that I've been putting off for a really long time, which is to finally take care of some orchids that in one way or another we have kind of been neglecting. These are orchids that either have been sick or have grotesquely grown out of their pots, and I really didn't feel like dealing with it, so I've just been putting it off for months. And for some reason today I felt like today is the day that I'm gonna at least attempt to take care of some of these orchids. And I thought it would be a good idea to take you along to show you how we're gonna choose to deal with them and whether that attempt is going to be successful for each one of them. To start with, I chose these 3 orchids, but I am absolutely not sure if we're going to be able to deal with all of them today. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And if you want to support the channel further, we have a super thanks option now activated in our channel. To get us started, we have here our Phalaenopsis venosa. And as you can see, she is barely alive at this point. We have a bunch of Phalaenopsis that unfortunately have got some sort of mysterious illness that we still don't know what it is. And we took all of them and isolated them from the rest of the collection. Most of them are recovering. They only have markings in the older leaves, and the newer leaves are coming in clean. So I'm pretty sure whatever illness they have, whether it's bacterial or a virus, it's probably due to the damage caused by the thrips infestation we had last year. And most of them seem to be recovering, but this poor one, I've pretty much put them all to another room. I give them a bit of water sometimes, but I left them to their own devices. If they survive, they survive. If they don't, they don't. That arguably poor decision has caused this plant to look like this. She no longer has the leaves that had the markings, and it's severely, severely dehydrated. I want to say I didn't notice it in time, but I did. I just didn't want to deal with it. And now I've decided I either toss this plant or I try to hydrate it and see if it pulls through. So the plan is to take it out of the pot and put it in just sphagnum to see if it hydrates, and if these few roots it has that are still alive can pull the rest of the plant through, and if it starts developing new roots and leaves. Oh, this does not smell good. And honestly, considering that's where most of the bad roots are, I think I'm just gonna cut off most of the stem and just keep the portion that has the live roots on, because we do not have a lot to lose with this plant. She is pretty much halfway dead, so the stakes are really low with this one. I cut off the flower spikes that are brown, and I'm considering cutting off the ones that are green still, because there's no reason to keep them. They're just, well, right now they're not developing, so they're not pulling energy from the plant. But orchids sometimes do weird things that aren't conducive to their best outcome, and just in case this one decides to produce flowers out of nowhere, I'd rather cut them off. That way it has no choice but to produce roots and leaves. I'm just trying to clean up this stem the best I can to make sure all these dried bits don't become a source of infection at some point. And this sad thing is what we're left with. Since the plant is looking like this, and the objective right now is to keep it hydrated, I'm going to pot it temporarily in pure sphagnum, which is what I usually do in these cases. Forgot this little root here. And this root here. We really don't have much to work with here, do we? So this is what I usually do with orchids that are in this condition. Not that it happens very often, but when it does, what I like to do is to place whatever roots we still have in the pot and fill up the pot with very, very loosely packed sphagnum moss to create an environment of high moisture in a way that doesn't suffocate or kill these roots, because most of them have grown as their roots so far. In the case of this plant, I think all of them are air roots. So we don't want to suffocate them, but at the same time we want to make sure the plant hydrates enough so that it can bounce back. And in my experience, usually when you do this, it triggers the plant to start growing, it starts producing new roots, the leaves get a bit more hydrated, and usually after a couple of months you can pot it into normal substrate again. I'm not too sure about this, mostly because I know it just had an infection and these leaves are not very promising. But it is definitely in the category of plants that we've been neglecting and that need one last ditch attempt to correct that. So we'll keep you posted on how this one does. Next, we have this gigantic mess that I'm not even sure can really fit in frame right now. Let me see. As you can see, this plant has been growing out of its pot, and it has been doing that. Well, the theme of the video was months, but I'm pretty sure this one has been like this for more than a year. And on top of that, I don't know if you can see, but it clearly caught the same illness that affected the other Phalaenopsis. And you might think me the worst orchid grower ever, but the truth is, I don't love this orchid. It was one of those spur of the moment, grab it while you're at the garden center because it's like marked to $2 or $3. And it turned out to be an orange star-shaped Cattleya, which is not terrible. It's a perfectly attractive plant. I'm just not the biggest fan of orange. And it turned into a really big awkward plant. So I mainly keep this one because Jay really likes it. But especially considering in the past few months, for health reasons, I've been the one who's mainly been taking care of our orchid collection. This one kind of fell through the cracks. It became too big to be on the shelf, so it got placed on the floor. Since it was on the floor, sometimes it doesn't get watered, I don't really look at it. So it became that thing that I will deal with at some point. But recently I saw that it also had those spots on the leaves, and it became time where I had to decide I'm either going to do something about it or it goes in the trash, just like the venosa. And since we're doing this video, I'm going to try and do something with it. Looking at this spot, I'm honestly tempted to just not deal with what's inside, chop off both ends, because that's where the decent growths are, and not deal with the inside of the pot, because a lot of it is just very dried, old, small pseudobulbs. But we're going to pull it out of here and see if I can pull it out, because as you can see, most of the new roots are growing outside of the pot. So let's see if... Okay, it came out easily. Left a few roots behind, but it came out easy. For something so neglected, this plant has actually not done that badly. And honestly, looking at the inside of this pot, if you can see here, Most of the roots inside are looking brown and not in the best condition. And knowing Cattleya roots, I'm pretty sure even if they're alive, as soon as I yank them from inside this pot where they're all glued to themselves and glued to the bark and glued to the plastic, they're just not going to survive. So I'm very tempted to just cut off the 2 growing points of the plant and just discard everything that's inside. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let me try and decide here where the best cut point would be. We have these bulbs that are hanging out. Oh, okay, over here there's 2 different growth points. So if I cut a little bit in the back, maybe I can keep them together. Okay, I'm gonna start cutting and then see what happens. Okay. Apparently, I did the opposite. I tried to cut the good part out, and I cut the old end out, so that's not exactly what I was planning. I don't know if any of you ever had to have their wisdom teeth removed, but I just had one removed a few months ago. And trying to pull these out of the pot feels eerily similar. I'm really not enjoying the comparison. I know this is being a very clumsy video, but when we started this channel, we wanted to show the realities of, ow! Well, that's when you know you really like the hobby, is when you start bleeding for it. Something poked through my finger. As I was saying, when we started this channel, we wanted to show the realities of orchid growing. And unless we're very much the exception, mistakes and clumsiness are a part of it. Okay, first section. Out. Oh, I gotta be careful, there's a brand new growth there. Let's try the same technique again and cut off all of these old roots. I think I accidentally cut a lot of the younger roots on this one, so we'll have to see how it survives. Another section separated. Now we gotta see the other side, which also has 2 parts. This pot was such a mess, I thought it had 2 points of growth, but no, it has 4. I think I'm gonna have to cut these back bulbs too, because I'm gonna break all the good roots if I keep them. There we go. I was gonna say much easier, but this one is completely glued to the pot. Okay. Here we have another section. And now the last one, which has some new growths back there. So I guess this section has 2 directions of growth. And another section. And we're left with all of these back bulbs, which I feel that a few years ago I would have saved them and put them in another pot and propagated them. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep all the other sections I just removed, so this is definitely going straight in the trash. Okay, so we have these 4 sections, and I feel like if I keep them all, I'm going to end up with a gigantic pot again that doesn't fit anywhere. And considering the plant is sick, considering that I don't absolutely love it, and more than I don't love this plant, I hate having big, unruly, messy, awkward plants on my shelves. I feel like that makes me dislike the plant even more than the flowers. So I think I'm going to select 1 or 2 of these to pot up again and maybe discard the rest. So I chose to keep these 2. This one because it's the biggest and has 2 directions of growth. And this one because it has already some roots developing. And these 2 don't seem to be the most affected by the illness that these plants have. And before anyone goes off in the comments, I do understand that I should probably just be trashing this plant. It is ill, we don't know if it's viral. So I understand that a lot of collectors would just toss it. I just want to give it a chance. We've had plants show these signs before and then they end up bouncing back in their new growths and they are now fine and flowering and everything is great. So even though I understand that the trash can might be in the future for this plant, I wanted to try everything and see what happens. So I'm now going to try and clean up these root systems the best I can. And then I'm going to put them in a pot. This was actually one of the plants we had put aside to do an experiment and try and plant them in Leca. Because last year I was really convinced that if I put all my Cattleyas in Leca, I would have a much easier time repotting them. I have 2 plants. I could pretty much put one of them in bark and the other one in Leca and do the experiment right now. I wanted to do like a separate video for it, but I see no reason why not to do that right now. Okay, and for the first plant in this little experiment, I thought we could also expand the experiment and try out this bark that was given to us by Sybotanica. They reached out last year and gave us a bunch of their products to try out. And so far we've really been happy with their houseplant mix. All our houseplants are doing much better and it seems to be a really good quality. So we thought we'd try out some of their orchid products as well. We also used some of their Sphagnum for the Phalaenopsis venosa, and I completely forgot to mention that. And now we thought we might as well, since this is an experiment, do their orchid bark as well. And who knows, maybe we can pull out another section of this plant out of the trash and plant one of them in our usual bark, which is the Orchiata bark. Well, first impressions, this bark smells really good. It doesn't seem to be as hard as our Orchiata bark, but it seems much better than other brands we've seen in the market. Because if you grow your orchids in bark right now, you know that there has been a bit of a shortage in being able to find good quality bark, at least in Europe. And before we started using Orchiata, we used all kinds of orchid bark, and this seems to be the best quality we've been able to find. So I'm really impressed with what the guys from Sybotanica have been able to get. At least in the first impression. We're gonna see how this lasts long term. Also, it smells really good. I know I just mentioned that, but it has happened to us time and time again where we try a new brand of bark, we open the bag, and it just smells like it's already rotting. And fungusy, if you know what I mean. But this smells really fresh and good. It smells like you're taking a walk in the woods. I guess I just, last minute, just decided that I was going to take a plant I don't really like and pot it up in 3 different pots. So I'm going to go from 1 of these to 3. I don't know if that's the best decision making I've ever made, but I think it would be an interesting experiment for the channel. And before anyone starts complaining in the comments for me using the word experiment here. My field is science. I understand that this is like the worst use of the scientific method. I know that this is a terrible way to do an experiment, that I really didn't measure up any parameters about these substrates like we wanted to do, and that using a plant that's already sick for this, also they have different sizes and different root systems, so I understand that any evidence we get from this is anecdotal. But you know what? I was reporting it now. This was the plant we had reserved last year to do this because we wouldn't be too upset if we lost it. So I might as well do this right now. I hope later on we're still able to do the video we were planning, where we were going to test out the pHs and all the parameters in each substrate before potting the plants in it. But honestly, like I said in the beginning of the video, sometimes life gets in the way and health is not the same as it used to be. So we're just doing the stuff we have energy for because this is supposed to be a fun hobby for us. So I'm sorry if anyone has noticed that our content hasn't been the most interesting, but we're doing our best. So there you go. Plant number 1. Potted up in bark from Sybo soil. Now we're going to try this one with the Leca that we have here. The Leca didn't come from Sybotanica. I think they have something. If it's not Leca, it's some sort of other type of clay pebble. But we didn't ask for any at the time because we already had a bag here for the experiment that we turned out to never do. Well, this is one of the disadvantages of Leca. It's extremely noisy if you're recording a video. Okay, there we go. Second one potted. And you know, other than the noise, really easy to repot with Leca. Well, it also helps that the plant doesn't really have a lot of roots, but so far so good. I just pulled out of the trash the 2 other sections of this plant we had, because I just remembered that we also wanted to try out potting a plant into Leca and Sphagnum. And I'm not going to dwell too much on why we wanted to do that experiment here. Hopefully we'll make a dedicated video to it later on. But I think I'm going to repot these, one into the Orchiata bark, the other one into Leca and some Sphagnum. And then we'll have, even if we don't do the experiment video right now, we'll have the subjects all ready for the experiment when we want to. So that was our repot video. That ended up being very improvised and mostly about the different medium experiment we were planning to do last year. Like I said, I'm still hoping we can make that video, and maybe at the time we can already show you some results from these 4 repots we just did. But either way, I hope you still found this video interesting. Don't forget to check out Sybotanica's website if you're looking to find different substrates for your plants. If you want to buy something, you can use our discount code. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave it a like. We'll see you next week with another video. Goodbye.